Have you ever felt like you're living in an action movie? Trust me, it's not as exciting as it sounds. Imagine a tranquil winter drive transforming into a scene of sheer terror. Imagine a serene winter getaway suddenly spiraling into an unexpected fight for survival. This isn't fiction. It's the most terrifying experience of my life. This is our winter, our story, our sinister encounter. Welcome to a tale that will chill you to the core. Our winter retreat to my family's cabin in the serene nature was supposed to be an escape from the city's hustle, a chance for me and my boyfriend Michael to unwind in the serene embrace of the mountains. My parents went to Australia that winter and my brother had his own plans, so it was free for me and Michael to relax and enjoy the winter between just the two of us. The drive there was a journey through a winter wonderland, with forests blanketed in snow and roads less traveled, painting a perfect picture of tranquility. As we were driving through the snowy roads, the scenery outside was a tableau of winter's touch. Trees heavy with snow, their branches arching under the weight, and the ground a pristine canvas of untouched white. The snowflakes, swirling in the glow of the headlights, seemed to guide us into another realm. Then suddenly snow began falling more heavily, transforming the landscape into a white abyss. Michael reduced our speed, his eyes focused and alert. The gentle descent of snowflakes was mesmerizing, but it also cloaked the world outside in a hushed mystery. It was then that we saw them. Two figures, barely discernible against the white backdrop. Michael slowed the car to a crawl. Our curiosity turned to horror as the scene before us came into sharp focus. In a secluded clearing, the figures were dragging a body wrapped in a tarp, hastily attempting to bury it beneath the snow. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. Michael had pretty much stopped the car and watching in horror. "Michael, we need to get out of here," I whispered urgently. But it was too late. One of the men had spotted us. His eyes locked onto ours, and in that frozen moment, fear gripped us like a vice. Reacting on instinct, Michael slammed the accelerator and the car jolted forward. The men reacted with alarming speed. Abandoning their grim task, they dashed to their car and started chasing us. The roar of their engine was a harbinger of danger, growing louder behind us. One of the men pulled out a gun and started firing at us. Gunshots rang out, shattering the silence of the snowstorm and chilling me to my bones. Several bullets hit our car, and the rear window exploded into a shower of glass. Miraculously, we were unharmed. Adrenaline surged through us as Michael raced through the treacherous road. Despite the treacherous conditions and nearly zero visibility, Michael maneuvered the car with a skill I never knew he possessed. It was like watching a stunt driver in an action movie, but the fear was all too real. The pursuers were relentless, their headlights a constant reminder of the danger looming just behind us. Then salvation appeared, an intersection. Without a second thought, Michael swerved sharply to the left, tires screeching in protest against the snow. We quickly drove off-road and hid behind a dense bush, with just enough cover to remain out of sight. Holding our breath, we watched through the snowstorm as the pursuing vehicle sped past the intersection, continuing straight without slowing. In that moment, relief washed over us, a profound sense of gratitude for our incredible stroke of luck. We sat there, the engine idling, as the reality of our escape sank in. The brush with death was too close, too real. My hand shook as I dialed 911, my voice quivering as I relayed the night's harrowing events to the dispatcher. The police arrived quickly and launched an immediate investigation. They combed the area and found the body, confirming our terrifying encounter. Unfortunately, we didn't get their car plate number or recall any details to aid with the investigation. Despite their efforts, the men we saw that night remained shadows, their identities unknown, their motives a chilling mystery. We never heard about the case again. Neither of the men were caught, and realistically, they would never be found since we had no evidence or clues to track them down. A year later, I returned to the cabin in the winter with Michael, who was now my fiancé, to meet my family. We had a warm and pleasant Christmas together, and we tried to laugh and move on. My family is just glad we were okay and unharmed. They hugged us a little tighter, their eyes reflecting the relief and the unspoken fear of almost having lost us. As we gathered around the Christmas tree, exchanging gifts and stories, the memory of that night lingered like a shadow at the edge of our joy. We recounted the tale to our family, our voices steady, but with an undercurrent of the terror we had felt. They listened, horror-struck, as they imagined what we had gone through. Sitting there in the warmth of the cabin, surrounded by the people I loved, I realized how close we had come to a different ending. While we tried to shake it off, to move on, and tell it as just another story, the truth was we couldn't ever forget the horror we felt. The fear, the adrenaline, the sound of the gunshots. They were imprinted in our memories. The chill of the winter was something I always embraced, but one particular snowstorm brought a chill that went beyond the cold weather. It was a typical winter evening in my small mountain town, and the forecast warned of a heavy snowstorm approaching. Having grown up here, I was no stranger to harsh winters, so I prepared to hunker down and enjoy the solitude. As the snow began to fall, covering the world in a blanket of white, I decided to enjoy the peaceful view from my living room window. The streets were deserted, a silent testimony to the storm's intensity. That's when I noticed a figure walking slowly down the street. It was odd to see someone out in such weather, but I reasoned it might just be a neighbor braving the storm. As I watched, the figure stopped and seemed to look directly at my house. I couldn't make out their face, obscured by the falling snow in the distance. Feeling a bit unnerved, I drew the curtains and settled in for the night. Several hours passed, the wind howling outside as the snowstorm intensified. Then, unexpectedly, a knock echoed through my quiet home. Startled, I hesitated. Who could possibly be out in this weather? The knock came again, more insistent this time. Cautiously, I approached the door. Peering through the peephole, I saw nothing but the white blur of the storm. Yet the knocking continued. My heart raced as I debated what to do. Against my better judgment, I opened the door, only to find no one there. Just the empty, snow-covered street. Confused and more than a little frightened, I quickly locked the door and retreated to the safety of my living room. I couldn't shake off the eerie feeling that I was being watched. The night grew longer, and the storm raged on. Then the power flickered and went out, plunging my home into darkness. The only light came from the fireplace, casting flickering shadows on the walls. I wrapped myself in a blanket, trying to stay warm, when I heard it, the sound of someone whispering my name from outside. Chills ran down my spine. I knew I hadn't imagined it. Someone was out there, calling out to me in the midst of the storm. I stayed still, not daring to look out the window, the whispers continuing, growing more desperate. The night seemed endless, the whispers a constant presence. When dawn finally broke and the storm subsided, I cautiously stepped outside. The world was calm, a stark contrast to the night's terror. There were no footprints, no sign that anyone had been there. It was as if the storm had swallowed the stranger whole. In the days that followed, I asked around, but no one else had seen or heard anything unusual that night. The snowstorm stranger remained a mystery, a ghostly presence that had vanished as quickly as it had appeared. I still think about that night, especially when the winter chill sets in. The memory of the whispers in the storm haunts me, a reminder that sometimes the most chilling mysteries are those left unsolved. The stranger in the snowstorm, real or imagined, became a part of my winter nights, an eerie story to share, but one that left me wondering what truly lies beyond the snowy veil. As the weather reports warned of an impending blizzard, the biggest our little suburban neighborhood had seen in years, my son Jake and I prepared for a cozy weekend holed up in our two-story home. We stocked up on essentials, planning to ride out the storm in the comfort and safety of our own space. The evening began as any other during a heavy snowfall, peaceful and secluded. Jake and I spent hours playing board games and watching movies, enjoying the warmth and comfort of our home against the howling winds outside. But as the night deepened, our tranquil evening was shattered by sounds that seemed out of place amidst the rhythmic howling of the blizzard. Initially, I brushed them off as the wind battering against the house, but the noises persisted, growing louder and more distinct. A knot of fear formed in my stomach as I realized that these were not just the sounds of the storm. Someone was in our house. I urged Jake to stay in his room and quietly crept downstairs to investigate. My heart pounded in my chest as I confirmed my worst fear. An intruder had broken into our home, exploiting the blizzard's chaos. Panic surged through me. The phone lines were down and our cell phones barely had a signal. It dawned on me. We were completely isolated. I grabbed Jake's baseball bat, confronted the man, and told him to leave. He turned around slowly, looked at me with a bone-chilling cold stare and empty dark eyes. The next moments were a terrifying blur. Despite hitting him, he was able to get back up quickly and wrestled with me. It was all blurry during this frenzy, but Jake's instinct to protect his mom overpowered his fear. Despite my instructions for him to hide, he couldn't just stand by. In the midst of the frenzy, he courageously emerged from his room. With adrenaline surging, he intervened just in time, smashing the man's head with his helmet. Stunned, the man fell on his back in pain, and Jake went all berserk on him, punching him in the face countless of times. I told him to stop and asked if he was all right, and he finally calmed down. He stopped hitting him, but continued to have him subdued as I called the police with the last bit of cell phone reception I had. When the authorities arrived, navigating through the relentless storm, they found us. A little battered, but unharmed. The intruder, now restrained in our living room, was an escaped convict who had sought refuge from the storm. In the days that followed, our neighborhood lauded us for our bravery. But for Jake and me, it wasn't about being heroes. We were simply relieved to have survived. That night forged an unbreakable bond between us, born out of a shared will to protect each other against all odds. I'm still surprised by how strong I can be as a mother, and how far I will go to protect my son, and what my son is willing to do to protect his mother. Despite the horrifying incident, I saw my son grow into a protective man that day. I'm extremely proud of him. But I just hope nothing like this happens to either one of us again.